Namaskar dosto, good evening friends. I am Dr. Sanjay Kalra, your friendly endocrinologist and you are watching Dr. KK's Med Talks, Thursdays with Dr. Sanjay Kalra. आज के हमारे नॉन स्टॉप शो का 696वां 696th एपिसोड है. Let's have the headlines for today. New COVID variant, Omicron subvariant BA.2.75 has been detected in many countries including India. तो ये कोविड भी नए नए अपने तरीके दिखाते जाता है, नए नए चेहरे दिखा रहा है. सो दीज वेरिएंट्स, सब वेरिएंट्स, दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू एंड वेरी सून. Not only COVID, pollution has made a comeback, and the key pollution ingredients or pollutants, PM2.5 and PM10 particles, have been reported to be far above the safe limit in Delhi throughout the summer between March and June. So we have this double whammy now, COVID as well as pollution. In spite of all that the government has done, vaccine hesitancy is reported amongst 11% of all Indians. This is bad because it should ideally be zero. In a sense, it is good क्योंकि बाकी countries में इससे भी ज़्यादा है, 5 गुना ज़्यादा है कई countries में तो. But hope is eternal, and in Australia now they are going to give the 4th COVID dose, precautionary dose, to each and every adult because of the fresh Omicron threat. And AIIMS Patna is going to start advanced yoga therapy. Now, this thing about advanced yoga therapy, that's very interesting. Does it make sense? Is yoga therapy, is yoga a lifestyle? Is yoga just a fad? Let's find out. Is yoga for everybody? Is yoga only for doctors, only for patients? Let's find out, and let's find out some other things as well about this. So let's go to our topic for today. A holistic approach to diabetes. That's what we all aim for. That's all what we try to do. तो देखते हैं कैसे करते हैं अपनी रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में. Let's see how we can actually have a holistic approach to diabetes. So whether you are a doctor, a nurse, a diabetes care professional, a healthcare professional, whether you are a person living with diabetes, or you know a loved one, a friend, a colleague, anyone who has diabetes, this show is for you. And let's introduce our guests for today. आज हमारे दो मेहमान हैं, दो गेस्ट हैं, और एक बहुत जाने माने बड़े प्यारे से चेहरे हैं, डॉक्टर आशीष डेंगड़ा. Dr. Ashish Dengra is a physician and diabetologist based in Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh, attached to the Mahi Clinic. Warm welcome, Dr. Ashish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ashish is a known name in his part of the country. He works in diabetes, and the good thing is that he has not limited his expertise only to his patients. ये अपनी expertise दोस्तों में बांटते हैं, colleagues में बांटते हैं, and he is a very well known figure in diabetes education, in diabetes CMEs across the country. So Dr. Ashish, warm welcome. We also have with us Madam Dr. Varsha. Warm welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khatri. It's always a pleasure to be on this program.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Varsha Trivedi is from Chennai. She is an internationally known clinical nutritionist, author, educator, and researcher. She is the founder, chair, and managing trustee of the Indian Institute of Nutritional Sciences Trust, a panel member of the World Health Organization Guidelines for Nutrition Practice in Southeast Asia. And she has been principal investigator for the Diabetes in India Nutrition Guidelines study. So, ma'am, warm welcome. Dr. Ashish, warm welcome. Our topic for today is holistic approach. We see, unfortunately, in the country, whatever the discourse is, whether it is politics, whether it is health, medicine, and today we're talking about health and medicine, there is a lot of divisiveness, a lot of division, people trying to do cherry picking, people trying to propagate their own style of thinking, and sometimes science goes for a toss. So, Dr. Varsha, our question is, in ancient India, what was the word for science? And related to health, when we use the word Ayurveda, what does Ayurveda mean?
Actually, your topic that you have said today, holistic, that is what actually basically Ayurveda also meant. It said that it was a lifestyle, a way of lifestyle. It was not restricted only to treating the disease. It was also looking at how to prevent, how to actually support health. That was the primary reason why Ayurveda was propagated or put together. So, it was not looking at only the disease factor. It is looking at how we should promote health and how, so holistic way of looking at life was only through Ayurveda.
And ma'am, lots of people logged in and listening to you. Dr. N.S. Sharda sir. Sir is a senior physician from Ahmedabad. Swapna Jainji, she's from Tamil Nadu, from your state, and she is a very respected advocate, a voice for patients' rights, especially
Okay.
for persons living with obesity. And maybe Swapna ji, you and Dr. Varsha can share ideas about how Ayurveda can, help us support healthy living with obesity. Jayaprakash ji हैं, Vinny Joglikar ji, ma'am, she looks up to you. She is a nutritionist from Bangalore. Anita
Right.
Dadlani ji, Suhas Pawar, all saying good evening. Dr. Ashish, madam ने अभी हमें ये बताया कि Ayurveda is all about health. It's about promotion of health, prevention of disease. And madam ने ये भी कहा it's a lifestyle. That means ये सभी के लिए है. Not only for doctors and patients, it's for everybody. तो ये जो सभी के लिए है, holistic approach to health, इसकी परिभाषा क्या है मॉडर्न मेडिसिन में? परिभाषा मतलब डेफिनेशन. हाउ डज द WHO define health?
Sir, WHO defines health as a state of complete mental, physical and social well-being. इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि सिर्फ डिजीज है कि नहीं है, बट आप सोशली, मेंटली और फिजिकली फिट हो कि नहीं हो, दैट इज नोन एज गुड हेल्थ. So basically, you have to see the holistically all the aspects of good health, not only the physical or any disease. We have to see the physical, mental, and social well-being.
तो अगर मेरे नंबर सब ठीक हों, जैसे मेरा ब्लड प्रेशर ठीक है, मेरा कोलेस्ट्रॉल ठीक है, मेरी ग्लूकोज भी ठीक है, it is not necessary that I'm healthy. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
definitely. Because your inner soul is also require the healthiness, and your mental peace should be there apart from physical and the numbers, which we are talking
Professor
about blood pressure and
Varsha,
sugar.
does Ayurveda speak about this as well? Do they speak about the definition of health and how happiness is integral to health?
Yes, it does, because it is pretty extensive. In fact, when I've looked at it into the ancient literature, whether be it our Gita, whether it be even Quran, whether even it be Bible, all of them have given a great importance to you are what you eat, so nutrition, and each one of them have given great importance in explaining what you should be eating to keep yourself healthy. So it is not something that it's a new concept now. It is something which has been even documented in our religious texts, uh, from ancient times, telling us on how important it is to eat the right way and have a right frame of mind. That also has been told. When we talk about it in Gita, where it says sattvic food and rajasic food and tamasic food, they have said how they influence your mental makeup itself, okay, and your activities. It has great influence on your day-to-day activities. So if you look at it from that point of view, you know Ayurveda is definitely a much more older version of how we need to manage ourselves, and we find that every one of them have beautifully said not just one aspect of your health, but a very composite holistic way of handling yourself. Yes.
And Nahida Tarannum ji is logged in with us, ma'am. She says that Ayurveda has explained the holistic definition of health so long ago, the way you're saying. Prasann Atma, that means a happy or a blissful soul. Indriya Manaha. And so what she says is that includes happiness as well. And Swapna Jain ji
Yeah.
says that it's all about lifestyle, mind style, and also resilience. So you need a resilient mind style. Ma'am, let's continue with the discussion. And
Yeah.
there is something known as Atreya's quadruple in Ayurveda. हिंदी में से कहते हैं आयुर्वेद अत्रेया का चतुष्पाद. So what are these four angles of the Atreya's quadruple, and why at all was it coined? Why did Atreya think of this at all?
No, Atreya thought of this for the simple reason he also comes from the older version of drawing the total holistic picture as such, and that is why as Dr. Dengra said in the beginning, it's no more absence of disease, right? That is how actually WHO started that freedom from any illness or infirmity. But then over the years they've kept on adding all these other aspects like mental and social and psychological and everything. They kept adding on it, and that's the way even Atreya had discovered that you just cannot talk about only one aspect when you're talking of holistic health. And that is why he categorized it into 4 different aspects and said that, this is how the holistic picture should look like.
Right. So that's very true. The same way that in physics, earlier we used to follow Newtonian physics, which is that each and every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So it was binary, it was linear. But now we understand quantum physics. Quantum physics means that energy and mass are interlinked. So right now you have mass, it can suddenly change into energy. You may not be able to feel the mass, but the energy is certainly palpable. And the energy can come back into mass as well. So it is quantum physics which operates in not only the field of physics, but in the field of health as well. So that's why holistic and multiple interactions.
Yeah,
Vaishali Dole ji
because
also. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
sorry, even in nutrition now we have moved much forward, where we are now talking about molecular level of nutrition, on how we can have tests which will predict much earlier what is the possibility of a disease that might intervene, and how you can then prevent it. You can also tailor make diets to people. Of course, it is still the in its infant stage. It is still not taught extensively to all the students of nutrition, and we are not brought it into day-to-day practice. But nutrigenomics and molecular nutrition is a exciting field that is coming up, and this is where you realize there is what you studied in college or what you've been keeping yourself abreast, in one particular way, is not adequate, because there is great changes that is happening. And we were always talking about nutrition earlier as domestic science or home science, okay, which was only food based. But when you talk about it in terms of clinical nutrition, we are looking at it on something which is endogenous. After you've eaten the food, what it does to your body. That is where we are now looking at. So we are not giving prescriptions that are only food based, but we also need to look at how your whole body reacts to what you've been eating till date and how to make a correction to that.
Vaishali Dole ji wishes you good evening, and also Mr. Anang Basu from Mumbai. Lalit Kathuria Saab hai. He is a leading businessman of Sonipat in Haryana. And what he says is, Dr. Ashish, कि जब हम चतुष्पाद पढ़ते थे आयुर्वेद का, तो उसमें 4 चीजों का वर्णन था. There were 4 things in that. All 4 things are equally important for successful therapeutic outcome. The patient or the person living with disease, the doctor, the drug, and the attendant. And what Atreya teaches us is that, like you're sitting on a chair right now or standing at a table, all 4 legs have to be equally strong, equally long. Then you get a stable platform. If anyone is weak, you get in trouble. So, if the doctor is weak, if the drug is not good, the attendants are not up to the mark, or maybe the person living with diabetes just refuses to accept
Follow.
and to fulfill his or her responsibilities for self-care, we are not going to get anywhere. सो ये तो ट्रेडिशनल था, बट इसका जिक्र होता है क्या हमारी साइंस में? व्हाट डज पेशेंट सेंटर्ड केयर, पर्सन सेंटर्ड केयर, व्हाट डज दैट मीन टू यू?
Yeah, definitely. We require the involvement of patient also and their family for good management of any disease. So patient, doctor, and attendant plus the family members. That is a very important part for the holistic treatment. Because if only any of the pillar is weak, then we will not get the good results. If the doctor is good and he is doing his best, and if the patient is not following and the family members are not supporting him or her, so we can't get the same results which we get with the complete proper guidance of the full family, patient, doctor. And if they all are working together in a sync, then we will get the best results which we require.
So another angle for being holistic, and that is that we all work together as a team. And Mr. Lalit is also doing that because he reaches out to people in the community and within his family, and they try to support each other. So whether you're going through good times or through bad times, you just support each other, just be with each other. That support itself is a therapy, Lalit. The fact that you're with a loved one, you're smiling, you're keeping her happy, that makes her healthy.
So we were talking about the holistic approach till the time Kalra sir joins. So, madam, in your Ayurveda, how you approach for the complete holistic approach or with the family support, how you approach these things?
See, basically, I always insist, that if it is a male patient who's diabetic, I insist that the spouse be with him, because it is she who's going to do the cooking, and if he's not going to get the support of his spouse, it's very difficult. In fact, at one time there was this WHO lecture that was arranged by MB Diabetes Center, and that where it said that at one point of time we thought that it was more of men who were diabetic at one point of time. Now the latest figures said that women were taking over as far as diabetes was concerned. And then when I was analyzing on that basis, I realized there was a very funny situation. uh, when I was talking to the female patients, then they told around, "नहीं मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ?" It all depends on what my daughter-in-law wants to do at home. So I really found the shift had changed. That even though the mother-in-law was diabetic, she was helpless of not being able to go into the kitchen and get things the way she wanted it. She was dependent on the family, the daughter-in-law. So I had to shift my focus of not only looking between the spouses, I had to start looking into the family. This happened almost a decade ago. And that is where I realized on what was mentioned that, family is a very important part. When we look
Yeah,
at nutrition,
Kalra sir has joined now. Yeah.
Yeah,
yes, yes.
carry on, carry on.
Yeah. So when I looked at it, see, in the final nutrient count, we basically say that, there are 30 different factors, not just starting with your individual biological requirements, but even the social, as we have already said. So there are 30 different factors, and many of which are exogenous, something which is impacting from outside. For example, how much is the money that they have to buy the food that they require. Other aspect that I realized when I was talking was earlier diabetes also was considered to be that of the disease of the rich. And then I found that no, I have any number of people who are daily wage earners who are diabetic. And so, frequent small meals was something which I cannot make them implement at all, because they work the whole day. And if it was a man of the family, what he would do is the wage that he gets at night does not go towards the family's eating, it goes into his drinking. And if that was another social problem that I was facing when I was handling these people. Similarly, it was also considered as the disease of the old. All right, the grandparents were supposed to be diabetic, but now I have got a huge number of pediatric population who is diabetic. So, I find that the various aspects and impact of the whole family who is becoming diabetic requires a different management, a different way of handling the situation. And all these are something which we have not yet documented with evidence on how we want to handle them. So if they are type 1 diabetic, we definitely have to match the food along with the insulin that is given. If we are talking of type 2, then we are looking at it in terms of the OHs that need to be given. But now there is another trend where it is not exclusively only insulin or only OHA. You have people who are on both combination of insulin and OHA. So there is a polypharmacy that is happening in this. And so how are we going to manage when it comes to polypharmacy? And then it was also the question of how to interpret the blood values. If I look at glycosylated hemoglobin, okay, and but it does not match with what I see in the fasting versus postprandial. What I see in the fasting, I have realized that it has more to do with how the person ate the previous 24 hours. If it was inadequate, I found that it is the utilization of their own body metabolism that is increasing. So it is not eating more of carbohydrates or sugars at night, but it is not eating appropriately and adequately that changes the fasting blood glucose. And postprandial is the one which is, immediate response to what the person has consumed as a meal. So, we these are little nuances. We are just classifying everything as diabetes as under one, but there are several aspects of it which needs to be documented and fine tuned when it comes to treating these people. So there is no standard, earlier there used to be a prescription for diabetic diet. No, now it is not a prescription, which is, we used to give cyclostyle sheets, then it became printed copies. No, it's not like that. We have to do individualized planning for each one of them on their lifestyle, on their family background, how they can access food. I'm reminded of a small story, if I may say that, earlier how we practiced nutrition prescription was we just gave a printout of 1,200, 1,400, 1,600 calories, which was like a hotel menu, which read like, coffee bar, tea bar, Horlicks bar, beverages for the morning. Then the breakfast was, like since I'm in the south, it used to be idli bar, dosa bar, idiyappam bar, uttappam bar, upma. And there were North Indian patients, so there was a puri added to the whole thing because the South Indian understand puri potato much more than they understand any other North Indian breakfast. And then the mid-morning was only buttermilk or, something like that. And then lunch again was something which where they said half a cup of rice or quarter cup of rice or something to that effect. And I remember, there used to be this standing joke where a patient comes back with absolutely erratic values and you ask them and he said, but doctor, I followed what you told me, I get up at 4 o'clock. So that time I drink my coffee, but you said 6 o'clock I must have coffee. So I have again at 6 o'clock. I normally eat, brunch sort of thing at 10 o'clock, but you told me eat breakfast at 8 o'clock. So I ate breakfast at 8 o'clock and he repeated his brunch at 10. He ate lunch at 12 and he ate again at 2 o'clock because that is how the family ate. So, unless we explain to them the individual requirements and what is possible for them to accommodate, we need to give them a rationale as to why they must make a change from what they are doing now. They are walking encyclopedia of all the mistakes that they have done all these years what has brought them to this disease condition. So unless we analyze that, and the dietetic world body has given us a guideline to say that it would take us anything between 60 to 90 minutes to counsel a diabetic person, any person for that matter, but more so in a diabetic person. And we are not supposed to impose a prescription on them, but to take them along in understanding where they're going wrong and how they should accommodate. So, this is a major change in the way of how we need to give a prescription for diet. And I always say that, in diabetes, diet is the main line of therapy and drugs only when to support it. But people think, that कोई बात नहीं यार, आज बासुंदी खा ले, आज ये स्वीट खा ले और ज्यादा हाफ टैबलेट ज्यादा डाल दे. That is an attitude people have, that the medicine, the drug is going to give them all solutions and they can do any aberrations or mischief they want to do and play around with their diet. They don't understand the significance of that, diet is the most important thing, your lifestyle is most important thing, and only drug will help you to a certain extent. So this is what we need to create as awareness if we are talking of holistic management of diabetes.
So actually, ma'am, that is the aim of KK Med Talks. We do try to create holistic awareness about holistic health. And like you said, जैसे मैडम ने कहा, एक तो पॉलीफार्मेसी, दवाइयाँ बढ़ती जा रही हैं, इनके परम्यूटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, तो वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड देम. ऐसे ही डाइट के बारे में हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बहुत बढ़ गई है पिछले 20-30 साल में. आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग हैज इंक्रीज्ड. अकेले डाइट का ये काम नहीं है कि आपने बस एक कागज दे दिया, साइक्लोस्टाइल दे दिया और ठप्पा लगा दिया, जी आपने फॉलो करना ही करना है. When you're speaking of diet, first of all, take a history, do an assessment. देखो मरीज क्या खा रहा है, क्या नहीं खा रहा, and then you focus on meal pattern. कितनी बार major meals, कितनी बार minor meals. तो number one, meal pattern. दूसरा, meal composition. खाने में होगा क्या? उस composition में mega nutrients like water and fiber, macronutrients like protein, carbohydrate and fat, micronutrients like electrolytes, minerals, vitamins. So mega, macro, micronutrients, ये composition आपने balance करके रखना है. So meal pattern, meal composition, फिर meal quantity, कितना खाना है. And चौथा होगा meal sequencing. पहले रसम पिएं या पहले इडली डोसा खाएं, पहले स्वीट डिश खाएं या बाद में खाएं. So the meal sequencing is also important. So all these are parts of holistic health. Ma'am, lots of questions coming your way and Dr. Ashish's way as well. But one compliment for you, ma'am. एक तो नाहिदा तरन्नुम जी कह रही हैं, very well said and thank you. And also, uh, she says, thank you, Dr. Ashish, for supporting the principle of Chatushpad, which is interactive, holistic, and everybody has to be together. Greetings to you from lots of people. Dr. Gauri Shankar Dharmaraj is greeting you, and also Dr. Kamini Sehra and Dr. Sanjay Sehra from Sonipat again. And ma'am, एक compliment है आपके लिए. This is from Karnal. नीना अग्गी जी कह रही हैं, so मैडम नीना आपको कह रही हैं, you're looking gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Shubhlata Chetwal from Delhi also greeting you, and Dr. Bhalchandra Meshram. And one question, ma'am, if you can answer in just one sentence. This is from Mr. Basu. He says, non-nutritive sweeteners for calorie restriction. Which is your single favorite sweetener for Indian cooking? Tea, coffee, sweets?
None.
None. Okay.
I'm not the person who proposes that people should, because you're actually pampering your 1.5 inch of your tongue without understanding what exactly or where you're adding and how you're adding. So I generally would not recommend that people use artificial sweeteners at all. It's a very indiscriminate use. In fact, almost 2 decades ago, I was invited by the Artificial Association of America, who held their meeting in New Delhi. And I was the only nutritionist who was invited. Everybody else was from the industry. This was done by the ministry. And I was surprised that they were talking about production. At least 2 decades ago, we were not for saccharin. And yet India was producing 400 metric tons of saccharin. And my question was, where was this saccharin used? Nobody would officially talk to me, but there will be always people who are disgruntled and who would make some comments, snide comments at the back. But it was quite revealing, because they said it goes into making of biscuits and things like that. And I was quite shocked to hear that, because who are the people who are consuming that? If it is children who are using it, why do they need artificial sweetener? They need the regular sugar. So this is where, people do not understand where they need to substitute and how they need to substitute, why they need to substitute. And there is a discriminate use of artificial sweeteners. So I generally do not recommend that people use artificial sweeteners. I stick to the natural, normal recipes and give them an idea. I'm not saying don't eat sweets, but I tell them where and how much you can eat. Nowadays, you go to a wedding, you have a huge array of sweets, and I tell them you decide what attracts you and limit to one sweet and not taste everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's much practical way. आज मन क्या कर रहा है? आज मैंने रसगुल्ला देखा, बस रसगुल्ला ही खाना है, तो फिर ले लो, portion of रसगुल्ला ले लो. Don't go near other sweets at all. No, आइसक्रीम खाना है तो दूसरा सब छोड़ दो, सिर्फ आइसक्रीम खाओ. लेकिन limit yourself and control yourself on that basis, and don't just because 56 भोग रखे आपके सामने, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपको 56 चीज खानी है.
That's nice, ma'am, because I also have to attend a wedding tonight, so I'll follow your advice. And जब आप चाय पीते हैं, तो जरूरी नहीं कि चीनी डालें या sugar free डालें. You can also put things like इलायची or like दालचीनी. So दालचीनी मतलब cinnamon. उसके taste से भी आपको अच्छा लगेगा, and you will get used to it very soon. And that also tickles your tongue without actually troubling your pancreas and while helping your metabolism.
No, the other thing is, it's a misconcept. Everybody talks about taking a beverage, tea or coffee. What I tell them is, you are supposed to take milk. You are adding something for flavor, which is called tea or coffee. Unfortunately, people are now using black tea, black coffee, green tea, and all these things, which are only flavored waters. And what is the purpose of doing or taking that at all? I don't understand. It doesn't come under my nutrient count. If you go to a Chinese restaurant, they will give you the green tea in absolutely small little containers. And you're supposed to sip it in between your thing. But in India, we don't talk about anything which is that tiny. It has to be a big cup of it, 200 ml, okay, or maybe 300 ml. And I think we are moving more towards America, where smaller, smallest doesn't work. It is large, larger, largest. So we want everything in big bulk. and why you are drinking that, when you are drinking, what are you replacing, in your meal pattern, what are you replacing is very, very important. So if you are supposed to be replacing milk with black tea or black coffee, it is of no use to you, because milk was giving you nutrients. Additionally, milk has got sugar, lactose, which is not as sweet, but if you don't dilute it with water or decoction which is astringent, that strong astringent, then you don't need sugar at all. The milk sugar is adequate to give you the taste. So it is, the way we have changed our recipes over the years that has made things difficult. And then we have media bombarding, telling you, today the headlines will be green tea is good for you. In fact, I even challenged the newspaper which said eggs are excellent for breakfast. If you read through the study, it talks about comparison of eggs to donuts. Now, how many people in our media or our newspaper read the thing and understood what is donuts and why? But they only made it like eggs is nice, so everybody wants to eat eggs in the morning. And now I find a very funny trend where they say only egg whites, 10 egg whites, 15 egg whites. What sort of damage we are doing to our environment? और एग yolks को आप क्यों eggs को लेके इतना खराब से waste कर रहे हो? Why can't you just eat one egg? Why should you have 15 egg whites? I don't understand. But this is again where the media people plus the sports people or even the gyms are talking about, building muscles. It doesn't build muscles that way. This is an erroneous idea that people have, that eating 15 egg whites will give you muscles. Absolutely crazy idea. So this
You're
is
right,
where
moderation. Yeah.
yeah.
Moderation is what ma'am is speaking about, and Vinny Joglekar ji bhi कहती हैं, same thing that you said, ma'am. Just add more milk, and the milk sugar will give a sweet taste with nutrients as well.
Yeah, and even in
Uh,
the milk, people now don't talk about white milk. At least in Chennai, Arvind gives you 3 colored packets. Okay, they give you blue, green, and orange. So now people don't even talk of milk as white milk. They talk about it as blue, green, and orange. They don't understand the green and orange are the ones which is signifying higher percentage of fat. And there are advertisement behind the buses itself which says you get more cups of coffee with this particular milk pack, and you don't realize that you add more decoction, you will get more cups of coffee. Why should milk give you more cups of coffee? I can't understand. So, we do not have nutrition legal, like medical legal cell, we do not have a nutrition legal cell. And you did mention about somebody who is there from South who is talking about the legal aspect. I would definitely want to work on this area, because we must get nutrition legal cell working very actively, where this sort of misleading claims are not made. Fat-free oil, and more cups of coffee. I just can't understand. There is
and
no
sugar-free
monitoring.
Chyawanprash.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I just,
diet bail is also very
Yes.
famous.
yes. So it is very erroneous, and there is nobody who is controlling this sort of advertisement
That
that
is
is making.
important, ma'am. Thanks for raising this. So, nutrition legal or nutri-legal concept, this is something that is new to my ears. But there are lots of people listening to us today, and अगर आप एक पोजीशन ऑफ पावर में हैं, आप मदद कर सकते हैं, तो इस मुहिम को जरूर फैलाएं जो मैडम रिक्वेस्ट कर रही हैं. We should make sure that people are not able to misinform us about nutrition, because
Yes.
nutrition उतना ही important है, बल्कि ज़्यादा important है medicine से. Dr. Ashish, one question for you, and this is about statins. So, should you give statin to every person with diabetes above 40? Dr. Dharmraj की तरफ से question है.
See, as per the guideline, if we see, then we have to give it to all the patients who are at high risk of cardiovascular disease, patient having family history or having the dyslipidemia, then we should start immediately, because there were more positive benefits in the studies apart from aspirin, because statins are giving much better reduction in the CV risk as in contrast to equaspirin or aspirin, which we are using. So it depends upon again the individualization has to be done. We have to sit and take the history properly of the family history, whether they are having the history of cardiac problems in family, and if the patient is obese or dyslipidemia is there, then we should start. But we should not follow guidelines in every patient, but we have to individualize in statin therapy also.
आपने बात की और मैडम ने भी की about individualization, and this word is coming up again and again. So, on one hand, we say holistic approach, which means everything put together, and at the same time, we say in the same breath, we say individualized approach, which means each person is unique. You might even change your approach from OPD to OPD. Like I come today to Dr. Ashish for consultation. Today my needs are different, my challenges are different. He might prescribe a different treatment. Dr. Varsha might give me a nutrition plan which will help me reduce weight. But after 3 months, I might go back with a different problem. And then Dr. Varsha might say, no, Sanjay, you've lost too much weight. Now you need to gain. So let me change your dietary plan. And Dr. Ashish will also change. So with this, Dr. Ashish, let's ask, are all people with type 2 diabetes the same? Because Nahida ji bhi keh rahi hain that what she says is that all people with diabetes are not obese. All people with diabetes don't have high lipids. So how do you classify people with diabetes? Can you give us a simple triage system?
Very important question and very good question taken. And we have a very good paper by Dr. Kalra sir in the name of metabolic fulcrum. So we can classify the diabetic patients by a metabolic triage: eubolic, catabolic, and anabolic. So eubolic means the patients who are looking normal, still they are having the diabetes and sugars are high. So you can give them the usual medicines like metformin or the DPP-4 inhibitors. But the second category, which is catabolic, they are having weight loss, severe polyuria symptoms, and catabolic symptoms. They are having the insulin deficiency. So they will be requiring insulin in the initial stage or the sulfonylureas in some patients. The third one is anabolic, those who are obese, overweight, or having the history of PCOS in the females and having the insulin resistance. So in that patients, we will require the insulin sensitizers like metformin or pioglitazone or thiazolidinones. So every patient is different. Again and again, the same thing, we are coming back to individualization. So you have to see the patient is fitting in which triage, as the paper, very good article given by Kalra sir, that you have to classify them accordingly and then you can start the medications.
See,
Thanks,
very
Dr.
many times, people also think that you go to the dietitian, it's such a headache. She will stop you from eating all the things. They've got this wrong idea. You आप दान पे दक्षिणा दे रहे हो और वो आपको stops you. My wife is a great cook and she won't let me eat all that. But what I basically try to tell these people is that you don't have to give a list of don'ts. You need to give them the list of do's with a rationale of why you want them to do that and for how long. And then the worst thing is they never come for follow-up. We do not have any documentation of a prescription that is given and what it has done to the person. This is what needs to be encouraged, where it has to be a team between the endocrinologist and the dietitian, where we are on the same platform of discussion to say, what was given as a prescription and what has happened as such. Because otherwise, when people's diet is wrong, but they only go with the blood values, the medication gets increased or modified on the basis of the values without understanding that it is the medication supposed to act on the food and not on the individual. This is where it goes wrong. But this is what happens because they never come back to us for follow-up. We never know when we have given a prescription what is happening to these people.
You are right, ma'am. So it is possible if there is no interaction between the treating team, it is possible that I might increase the dose of glimepiride or increase the dose of insulin, while actually Dr. Ashish might keep it the same and just tell them, please go back to Dr. Varsha. And now when she tells you to eat not more than 2 idlis or not more than 1 dosa, follow her advice, but don't remain hungry. She will give you another 100 snacks which you can take along with the idli and dosa. So it should be a holistic approach actually.
Yes.
And Nida ji ye bhi kehti hain that documentation is important. That's right. And Shri Kumar Nair ji says something that has happened to me also. I don't have type 2 diabetes, Mr. Nair, but I did do keto for 3 months. I lost a lot of weight. And when I came back to my old lifestyle, which is also quite decent, which is quite disciplined, the weight came back. If I lost 10 kg, 12 came back. So the speed was quite good, but the velocity wasn't negative. So these extreme diets like keto are actually not good for health.
Yeah, even this intermittent fasting that's making great rounds, okay? Physiology that was taught to me said that you deprive food for a long period of time, your GI tract slows off and goes into hibernation. but who's teaching physiology to anybody? So this is where the problem is, and everybody is talking left, right, and center on intermittent fasting. And God forbid, with the COVID, the way it is, we are talking of immunity only by words. Nobody's really understanding what you need to do for obesity. I mean, for COVID-19 and immunity. And if you're going to be doing intermittent fasting in the middle, you are jeopardizing your own immunity. Nobody seems to understand, but that is where I'm saying nutrition legal sell. Even when it comes to advertisements, it has to go through some stringent ways. Unless that is done and monitored, we are actually misleading people, and people are falling prey to all wrong information.
Ma'am, following with this, a single sentence answer, if you can give. This question is from Mr. Mohan. Which are the best immunity boosting foods from a functional food perspective? A single
Basically,
sentence.
from the functional food basis, we say that you definitely need to include vegetables and fruits. Again, our history and record on documentation from National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, ICMR unit shows that we are very, very poor in our way of eating vegetables and fruits.
So
And this
colored
is where
fruits. Yeah.
yeah, and also, when it comes to drinking water, this is again an area which is absolutely questionable. For long periods, people, if they are in the working class sitting in an air conditioned environment, they are dehydrating, but they don't feel it, and so that is very harmful. Similarly, people who are children in the school, you even have an advertisement where it is shown that the mother very proudly says that the child comes with a water bottle and puts it into the pot without drinking, and so she gives an alternate of making him drink juice. How can you even give such an advertisement? Water is water, and you cannot substitute one for the other. But this is where the misinformation comes. You have an advertisement which says, a क्रॉस मारा है, पूरी थाली में जो खाना रखा है पिरोसा है, उस पे क्रॉस मार के आप सिर्फ 2 मग ये पी लो. How is that equivalent? It makes me
Right.
really boil when I
So
see this advertisement.
you've spoken of
मुझे मेरा
water.
सिर कहीं जाके टपकना है, मुझे मालूम नहीं पड़ता मैं किसको जाके ये कंप्लेन करूं. मेरी कौन सुनेगा?
No, but we are
मेरी
all together,
पढ़ाई
ma'am.
मेरी
So,
पढ़ाई absolutely waste है when I see this sort of advertisements.
but ma'am, one voice may not be heard, but all the voices together, we can make a difference. We can make
I
a
must say
difference.
thank you to Dr. KK and to you now for giving me this opportunity to be heard, because
Message is
I always
going across.
my mother says she never gets tired of talking. I said no, I am very fond of my voice as long as it is heard.
But the point is well taken. Colored vegetables, colored salads, colored fruits. And the flag of India has 4 colors. So you counsel children, if you're a patriotic Indian bacha, then you have at least 4 colors in your plate. Second is water, enough water. And with this, Kathuria sahab पूछ रहे हैं मैम आपसे, should I take water in a copper glass?
See, there has been a lot of our ancient documentation that has been there on what it is. But again, I would say that we do not have evidence-based documentation to say. But I would still feel that that is much better than using the RO water. And again, this is another wrong concept of RO water, because for every 1 glass of water that I extract from the machine, there is equal amount that is lost in the drainage. Okay, so that is not being an effective way. And why do we need it without minerals or without vitamins or any of those things? Our own, earlier when from Tamil Nadu, from Chennai, when we traveled to Delhi, the first thing my father used to buy and come from Delhi was the sarai. The speciality of Delhi was that mud pots. They were very special from Delhi. And I remember him, every time he traveled for his office work, he brought one home, and it used to be a great joy for us to drink water from that. Recently I just saw an advertisement of how a person in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, is making a non-electrical refrigerator. This has been the concept in our village where, they made it out of mud. So I can't understand why we cannot use our old technology, which was which was saying it was safe, while we are replacing. And now there is some Japanese company that is making rounds in India, where they talk about, changing your water content by some mechanism. And they give you such elaborate explanation of bringing you litmus paper and bringing you this and
Alkaline
saying that,
water. Alkaline
yeah,
water.
and all these things. Yes.
It's
I,
five times the cost.
I can't understand why we need technology of that sort at all. We add lime to the water, it becomes alkaline. Why do I need to have such an expensive machine installed? So, we have moved away from our. There was a lovely book by a Japanese again who had taken pictures of water crystals under different and said, जो पंचामृत में दिया जाता है मंदिर में, it was supposed to have such a healing power, because when he took pictures of it, it came with chanting and such well thing. So there must be a concept, which we have lost over time. Maybe we should go back and read our old text to see why they said we should do this. But I don't see any harm. But then the moment you say drink in the copper thing, the copper vessel will become, even it's expensive, it will become more expensive. That's all.
So Lalit, now Lalit is a rich boy. So you can have water in copper jar. We'll ask about the season question just now. But apart from that, other options are nimbu pani, just put lime to water, and also matka, the traditional matka that we use in Haryana. And that is, ma'am, quite popular here, especially in summer months, not only in the villages, but in the cities as well. So it is something quite popular, and Lalit can think about that. Lalit has another question, ma'am. Does it make a difference according to the season regarding use of copper vessels?
No, that's what, as I said again, I have not come across any documentation as far as this is concerned on the do's and don'ts of it. Okay, मेरे घर में भी copper का जग मग सब आ गया है. So, but to maintain it it's very difficult, because in Chennai we are on the sea coast, and the whole thing will blacken in no time. So maintaining that is very, very difficult. And so after some time you become embarrassed. If you can't clean it, you don't want to serve it to the people. So then it goes into the cupboard and it is lost. So there are certain practical issues to the whole thing also. So it is a question of how you can maintain it. I also found copper things which had stainless steel on the outside and copper lining on the inside. So you get all these variations, but then you really have no way of documenting to say that this has got evidence that it helps. But no harm trying all these electronic gadgets and gimmicks. I think we can still go back to our copper vessels.
The Haryanvi matka is something we can try with you and I.
Sure.
So, ma'am, you have a fan following. Swapna ji and Nahida ji both saying that we are learning a lot from you, and we do add our voice to what you are saying. So don't feel lonely. Lots of questions about medicines. So Dr. Ashish, एक question पूछते हैं. You spoke of anabolism, catabolism, eubolism. What impact does that have on medicines? Let us say someone is overweight. So what are the medicines that will be preferred in such a patient?
Overweight patient है तो mainly we can use metformin, SGLT2 inhibitors or GLP-1 receptor analogs. So these are the group of agents which causes weight loss also. थोड़ा बहुत weight भी कम होता है patient का, and insulin resistance कम होता है. So they will have the good control of diabetes and will have good quality of life. And if the patient is eubolic, in that patients also we can start with metformin and DPP4 inhibitors. And if the patient is catabolic, then immediately we have to give insulin for a few weeks if the patient is type 2 diabetes, and if it is type 1, then we have to give lifelong. So my message is type 1 diabetics में जिंदगी भर इंसुलिन चलता है. हमने कई पेशेंट्स देखे हैं जो बेहोश होकर डीके में आते हैं. आज इस फोरम से आप सबको मैसेज देना है, चाहे आपके घर के पास हो या रिश्तेदार में हो. टाइप 1 डायबिटीज वो होती है जिसमें इंसुलिन बनना पूरी तरीके से खत्म हो जाता है, तो उसको जिंदगी भर इंसुलिन पे रहना पड़ता है. But in type 2 diabetic patients also, if they are in the catabolic stage, sugar is very high, glucotoxicity, patient is having weight loss of 10 to 12 kg, and is feeling very lethargic or weakness, then for a few weeks to 1 month, if you give the insulin, then the glucotoxicity goes down and patient regains the muscle loss, and the patient has good quality of life, then we can add him on the oral drugs also. So the simple therapy which we can decide according to the patient whether they are in the overweight condition or the weight loss or the patient is normal weight. So we can categorize the patient and then decide the therapy.
Doctor, this is some latest trend going around where people are told that, they are put on some program, an extensive, very intensive program, and they will have it reversed in 40
Reversal.
days. Yeah, that is going on very much in Maharashtra area. And I have been hearing about it quite frequently. I really want to understand how is it really true, and is it really effective, or is it working? If that is true, then the whole thing reverses. We need to only do propaganda on that 40 days thing and make everybody become non-diabetic.
It will have to last lifelong, ma'am, whatever you do. So like for diet also, you also teach your patients, if it is sustainable, you go ahead and do it. Of course, if it is a short term thing, let us say you have acute gout, you have acute pain abdomen, then there are acute changes in diet. For example, somebody gets pancreatitis or pain abdomen or diarrhea, you do change the diet and you change it for a few days. When the diarrhea resolves, when the pancreatitis resolves, you come back to normal. But if it is a chronic disease, overweight, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, then you need chronic changes. So,
No, but
and
this is quite a few of my patients who are there who are reaching out, and they say they are such terribly strict diet part of it, and how they need to eat and all that, because they promise that in 40 days time they will become non-diabetics. This is
That
a
in
wrong
these
message
patients,
that is going
they are
out.
giving high fat and high protein diet, and carbs are totally cut down. And it is helpful to patients who are very obese, and that due to insulin resistance, if they are developing diabetes, then they can be reversed by weight loss of 10, 20, or 40 kgs, depending upon the initial weight. Those patients we can reverse diabetes, but in the patients who are like we have described catabolic or insulin deficient patient, they can't be returned back to the normal. So again, it is a marketing gimmick. Every
Yes.
diabetic patient cannot be reversed.
Yeah, this is a message that should definitely go out today, that not and even the patients do not know what category of diabetic they are, and they all fall for this gimmick of cutting down on their diets without understanding what it is, and then they fall from one problem to the other. So this is something which we definitely need to reach out as a message to people, that they should not fall prey to these sort of you know advertisements
misinformation.
going
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
So, ma'am, what you said, doctors and patients are not aware, that is true. Doctors are also not aware. So, let us use some simple words to explain to the vast majority of our patients, our population, our countrymen and women. Like Dr. Ashish has used the word anabolic, the correct word would be maladaptive anabolic, anabolic, eubolic, EU-bolic and catabolic. ऐसे ही अगर आप भगवत गीता में जाएंगे तो आपको दिखेगा not a direct correlation, but you can see the overlap now. Uh, Tamasic, Sattvic, Rajasic.
That's it.
Let's go to Ayurveda. Uh, Kaph, Pith, and Vat. So let's do it all over again. Uh, Ma'am, do these words, do they ring a bell? Vat from Ayurveda, that means flighty, airy.
Yeah.
Catabolic from Dr. Ashish's language, modern medicine. And from the Bhagavad Gita, Rajasic, you're always in a hurry. You want to do things fast.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you do this, you will win the 100-meter race. Certainly you will. And you might be the most successful person in the world for some time, but you are not going to win the marathon. That we are sure
No,
of.
and also, if you look at it in terms of the body composition of an individual, we are also talking about three different categories. I always say there is a trinity in anything that we do in life. Even when it comes to nutrition, I teach people it is commercial nutrition, clinical nutrition, community nutrition. So we have a trinity of how we are looking at it. But you have ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. Okay, and when you look at it in terms of that sort of body composition, it is only in the ectomorph where you will find there is a very distinct cutoff when it comes to your appetite, but when the other two it is not. Okay, but it is the mesomorph which is more muscular or athletic body. So if you are an endomorph, come what may, if you are not going to control the way you eat, you will have a tendency to become roly poly over a period of
Yeah,
time.
yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
while the ectomorph is the one which will continue, may eat lots and still find that, the metabolism is helping them and they continue to look skinny. So I get patients who, are on both sides. They want to lose weight. I get that category also. And I get ones who wants to put on weight. What should I eat to put on weight is also a question. So, but people don't understand that there are only 3 different categories as far as body composition is concerned. And depending on this classification only can you make adjustments. So you really can't get something other than this combination. So,
you are ectomorph, or you are catabolic, or you are Vat, or
yes.
Rajasic. You can look at it any way you want. Chances of diabetes remission are not there. You will need insulin. And the sulfonylureas, you can use the modern ones, Nahida ji, like glimepiride, 1 to 4 milligram per day, or glyclazide XR, something like 30 or 60 milligram up till 120 milligram per day. The companies say you can give it once daily, but many times we prefer twice daily in divided doses. The reason is that our dinner is quite heavy as compared to the Westerners. These drugs were developed in Germany and in France, where they have supper. It's a very light dinner that they have, very light night meal that they have. Ours is quite significant. It's high. So therefore, we usually in India divide these into 2 doses. If on the other hand, you are Kafaj, that is cough, or maladaptive, anabolic, or tamasic, then certainly a little bit of diet and exercise is going to help you. And if you do a little bit more than a little bit, the chances of diabetes remission are quite good if you've just been caught to have diabetes. So you should try your best. We have so many
about
questions.
you mentioned about the timing. Yes, very, very important, because when I look at, I think Delhi, when I get patients, pediatric patients from Delhi and Calcutta, I have a tough time. See, we get a lot of them, medical tourism for Tamil Nadu is very high. And so we get a lot of people coming to us from the Bengal side, as well as, the Siliguri and West Bengal and Assam and all that. And we also get from Delhi, some of them coming because, MV diabetes and all of them are very, very famous for the diabetes part of it. So I have seen patients. And I find that I definitely wanted to write to Mamata Banerjee ji as well as to Kejriwal. I have seen children leave home at 6 in the morning in the winters. Okay. And if they are going to be insulin dependent diabetics, the juvenile diabetics, who is going to monitor their breakfast and their insulin? This is my question, which nobody is able to answer at this point of time. Similarly, when I get people from Calcutta area, they will never eat dinner before 11 in the night. Okay. If I tell them that you need to eat if I talk of circadian rhythm, the rhythm of the sun, and I say, even in the COVID time, sun came on its perfect timing and went on perfect time. It didn't say that everybody's at home and keeping awake, so मैं भी late जाऊं और फिर late आऊं क्योंकि सब सवेरे late उठते हैं. The sun never said that. And our enzymes and hormones work on circadian rhythm. So people don't seem to understand. But this is another area of diabetes which is of big concern. Where school children, the juvenile diabetes is on the rise, and the school children are at work, off to school at times where you cannot monitor what is happening in terms of their insulin and their diet. That's another area which we need to look into.
That's another point that you have added, ma'am. Our topic is holistic management of diabetes, holistic approach. And you've also included now we need to focus on sleep hygiene, our daily rhythm, regularity in our daily rhythm, and try to sort of match your lifestyle with that of the sun. That is something we can do.
Yeah.
Ma'am and Dr. Ashish, in this session, this week, we are celebrating Doctors Week because we had Doctors Day recently. So we have taken out the 5 most Googled questions for you on our topic. Our backend team, that is Pooja and Manmeet and Pratik, they went on Google. They searched for the most Googled questions. So let's ask you them one by one. And let's ask Dr. Ashish first. And there is a question related to this as well. This comes from Tanay Prohitji. We'll handle that. And also from Lalit Kathuria first. So Lalit ji, aapse puch rahe hain, Dr. Ashish, can cortisol be the cause of diabetes?
See, cortisol is what? It is a hormone which is released in the circadian rhythm. Again, like Madam told, that everything is in circadian rhythm in our body. So cortisol, if you are taking steroids from outside, then it also can cause diabetes, as was seen in the COVID era. The new patients are developing due to the steroid, or if there is some adrenal problems in your body due to the hypersecretion, then also you can develop the diabetes.
टेंशन का पूछ रहे हैं ललित जी. Will if tension increases adrenaline, noradrenaline, adrenal hormones, will that cause diabetes?
Yeah, see, any hormone which is released during the things like आपने शेर देख लिया और आप डर गए, तो उस समय ये सब hormones ज्यादा बनने लगते हैं. So if they are secreted due to the some disease in the gland and they are secreted daily, then you can develop the diabetes in long run due to the these hormones which increase the glucagon level, or the hormones which causes the increase in the insulin resistance. So all these can be in a long run if the hypersecretion is from the gland, but in the short run they will not cause the harm of increasing the glucose levels. And in the long term, if it is the hypersecretion, then only you can develop the diabetes due to the increased cortisol levels.
Continued exposure to stress, Lalit, can worsen diabetes, certainly. Ma'am, yes or no question for you, please. This is again from Mr. Kathuria. Ferulic acid, ALA, amino lipoic acid, and fish oil, do they help in reducing the dose of anti-diabetic drugs?
No, see, basically, these are under the omega-3 fatty acid. If you look at fish oil, okay, and again, it was taken out in isolation, encapsulated. Like even garlic has been encapsulated, and you're told that if you take this, and now turmeric has come as curcumin tablets. Anything in isolation is not going to be the solution or an answer. You were never supposed to eat this. These were something that we add as carminative effect in our cooking. It is not something that you are supposed to isolate and eat in abundance. So I definitely would be very wary about this being used ad libitum and indiscriminately, thinking that it will help us as such.
And ma'am, another question for you, that is, should we drink hot water or cold water, refrigerated water or room temperature water?
It is generally said that anything at room temperature is much more vital, but then you will find also it depends on the area. In Kerala, they've always served you warm water. So it all depends on geographic location and how people have evolved over a period of time. Yes, there was a time when I myself was doing a wrong thing, in the sense I never drank uh, plain water. It had to be ice cubes. My whole flask would be ice cubes, and that's how I ate. And then it's the more I understood about the effect it had on me, I realized one thing: it made me very anemic. And then I read a lot about it, and they said that if you do that, a lot of ice water or refrigerated water that you drink changes your whole reaction on your iron metabolism, and that is where you become anemic. So definitely what was meant to be, also your body has to work extremely hard in trying to normalize your temperature when you take something which is very hot. In cardiac patients, we definitely would not want to give them a very hot beverage at all, because it precipitates heart attack, or. So there are conditions where we definitely feel that you should not be taking extreme temperatures when it comes to especially when it comes to beverages. But unfortunately, it is more of a what titillates your 1.5 inch of tongue that gets a priority. Where the rest of the inches suffer, nobody worries about it.
Again, I think individualize, and what ma'am is saying again and again is moderation. Follow Lord Buddha's path.
Yes.
Doctor, I think this question from Google for you. This is the most Googled question for today's topic. And the question is, I'm a type 1 diabetic. Am I at risk of nephropathy? Yes or no?
Yes,
very
either. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, doctor.
Yeah, type 1 diabetics, definitely, even type 1 or type 2, both are at the risk of developing the nephropathy. If your glucose levels are not under control, and if they are above 200 for many years, because type 1 diabetics are at risk of both micro and macrovascular complications. So any diabetic patient, whether it is type 1 or type 2, both are at risk of developing nephropathy.
You know,
And
I again tell my patients when I'm educating them that, diabetes is a better disease to have than going into any other cardio thing. Because though you will get diabetic cardiopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, and all of them, all these pati, द्रौपदी की तरह आपके भी 5 हो जाएंगे, लेकिन अगर आप कंट्रोल में रहेंगे डायबिटिक का तो पति जिंदा रहेगा, नहीं तो पति जाएगा.
you can control with discipline. Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Dr. Ashish, the opposite question is also there. This by chance happens to be the fourth most Googled question. If I have kidney disease or liver disease, am I at risk of diabetes? उल्टा
Am
question
I?
आ रहा है. At risk of diabetes.
Okay.
अगर मुझे kidney disease या liver disease है तो.
So definitely, if the patient is having the kidney disease or liver disease, if there is disarray in the metabolism, if the patient is developing insulin resistance in these patients, they develop the insulin resistance also. So they may develop diabetes, and due to the stress hormones, because the patient is in stress always, also they can develop the diabetes in long term.
Right. And ma'am, one question for you. This is also coming from Google. This question says, I have heard that Ayurveda is a mix of herbs, and every Ayurvedic medicine has the same composition. Is this true or wrong?
No. It's not the same composition. In fact, at one time, I have not found time, but my mother brought me a big volume called Arya Bishak, a book where they have talked about, the different medicinal things for Ayurveda. And so, if you're looking at it in terms of herbs, yes, herbs are all plants, but we all depend on the plants, whether it be our carbohydrates that come to us from plants, whether it is our protein that comes from leguminous plants, and our unsaturated fats again come from the plants only. So we are dependent totally on plants, but that doesn't mean that everything is the same. It has got the way it is handled is totally different. And so it cannot be generalized and said that everything has got the same composition. No. But you
So,
have to be extra careful in understanding how you are consuming and what it does to you in the long run. I mean, we really do not know of specialists. If we are talking of holistic, then I think we'll have to combine the allopathic, the Ayurvedic, the homeopathic, all the different parts together to understand which one gives you the right thing, or what is the explanation that was given behind it, if we have to make it holistic. Because now suddenly, people have felt that going back to nature or going back to Ayurveda or something is the answer. But then, when you are actually going for an immediate critical or acute condition, you go to an allopathic doctor. They would not know how to support you, and you will want to change from one to the other.
what ma'am is saying is right. So, of course, एक तो all plants are different, all herbs will be different, herbs, shrub, trees. But मान लो same herb भी हो, अगर आप उसको अलग तरीके से handle करते हैं, तो भी अलग impact आता है. The way you procure your medication or herbs, procurement, the way you prepare it, do you ferment it? Do you keep it out to heat and dry in the sun? What do you do to that leaf, to that herb? The way you present it, do you give it with malai or cream? Do you give it with honey? Do you give it in just as a pudi or as a powder? And the way you preserve it, all these have an impact. Same is true for food also. That's why we speak of culinary medicine. And we speak of the 4 P's in culinary medicine: procurement, preparation,
Presentation.
plating or presentation, and preservation of food. So this has an impact on herbs as well. And Dr. Ashish will know this is the mango season going on now. So we have more than 100 varieties of mangoes. All are different. You cannot say they are the same, though they may share the same botanical name. Even for the same species, the same style, langda, let us say, if you pluck it from the tree, it has a different taste. But if you take what is known in the north as tapka, वो पेड़ से टपक जाता है, it just falls down on its own, it ripens on its own, that has a totally different taste. So this is what we have to understand. Each patient is different, and sometimes in the OPD we don't have time to go into all these nuances, but we should try as much as possible. And
No,
Nahida ji, we saw
at one of the meetings that we had with FAO, when I used to teach my students, the nutritive value of Indian foods will give you value. The food composition of rice has only one value. And I was teaching my students that there are 540 varieties of rice in India. And then I was corrected and I was told by FAO There are 5,500 varieties of rice. And then my question to them was, how is it that how you differentiate one variety from the other? And said, if 1 hectare produced 1 metric ton, then that's one variety. 1 hectare produced 1.1 metric ton, then it is a different variety. If it produced zero point 0.9, then it is different variety. So, they are not interested in the nutritive value of these variations. They just classify them as varieties. But we have only one value, and we don't know what we are eating in that case.
You're right. Dr. Ashish, one more question. You already answered it, but the question is, can I reverse diabetes with yoga and diet?
एज वी हैव डिस्कस प्रीवियसली कि कोई भी व्यक्ति जो कि कैटाबॉलिक फेज वाले डायबिटीज में है, जिसका इंसुलिन नहीं बन रहा है, उसमें रिवर्सल नहीं होगा. जो व्यक्ति ओवरवेट ओबेसिटी की वजह से डायबिटीज हुआ है और वो यदि अपने खान पान में परहेज करता है, एक्सरसाइज, डाइट, योगा फॉलो करता है और अपना वेट लॉस जो कि रिकमेंडेड है वो करता है, तो ड्यू टू द इंसुलिन रेजिस्टेंस इंसुलिन काम नहीं कर रहा था, बट ड्यू टू द वेट लॉस ही विल बिकम इंसुलिन सेंसिटिव, and those patients, in some percentage of patients, they can reverse diabetes. But अभी गिमिक क्या चल रहा है कि सबको उसमें लेते जा रहे हैं कि you can reverse diabetes. No, you have to diagnose which type of diabetes you are having. टाइप 1 में तो बिल्कुल नहीं करना है क्योंकि पेशेंट की जान जा सकती है. तो ये मैसेज हमारे इस फोरम से जाना चाहिए कि टाइप 1 डायबिटीज बिल्कुल इसको वो ना करें कि आपको रिवर्स हो जाएगा. बट if you are obese, overweight, and then you are developing the diabetes due to the bad food habits and sleep hygiene is not proper, then only you can get some chances of diabetes reversal.
Dr. Varsha, if you allow 2 more questions, we've already crossed 8 p.m. But if you can just give short answers, ma'am. So one question is, which cooking oil do you use at home?
It is actually a good thing to be using a combination of oils. Earlier, a combined oil was considered as adulteration, but Government of India has permitted that you can get. And I think the brand name Dara, brought out by the government thing, was having that. But I would still say that, using a combination like, rice bran oil is the one. We are looking at the polyunsaturated, saturated, and monounsaturated combination. Rice bran oil is excellent in all the 3 aspects, but all can't afford to be buying only rice bran oil. So our traditional oils that we were using, like peanut oils, the groundnut oil, the sesame oil is much prevalent in the south. Coconut oil is prevalent in Kerala. So I think if we stick to our traditional oil, it is perfectly fine. But anything, when we are using oil, it has to be in moderation and everything. That advertisement where a kid is tumbling through everything that is fried in huge quantities is again something that kills me, because you cannot be eating everything fried and say that this oil is excellent and you can eat everything fried. It's just erroneous conclusion.
But we get the feeling, ma'am, you feel so passionately about your subject. That is actually commendable, and I'm sure everybody is with you in your fight against misuse of nutrition.
Yes, thank you.
मैम, एक क्वेश्चन और एक कमेंट. पहले क्या बोलूं, तो कमेंट तो है स्वप्ना जैन जी का. मैम, आपसे मन नहीं भर रहा, so please join us again. This is the comment for you, ma'am.
Thank you so
Ashish
much.
is a very good singer and a very good dancer as well. Ashish मूड में आएगा तो स्वप्ना इसको गाने में भी बदल देगा वो. And एक और क्वेश्चन है मैडम, प्रीबायोटिक्स, प्रोबायोटिक्स, curd, yogurt, dosa and idli batter, these also have prebiotics. So what's your take on all this science?
Yeah, see, this has evolved over a period of time on how we created our recipes. And so that there's definitely a thing. Of course, there is now a greater trend of research that is coming from Japan, where they're talking about probiotics in a very different way. And every year we have an annual conference where a lot of work is going on how, certain strains are being isolated for probiotics. But I definitely feel that if we were to stick to our traditional way of eating, we might be doing a very safe way of carrying forward than to getting something, in a capsule form or in an artificial way.
Right.
Curds is definitely curds, buttermilk, all these are a traditional way of consuming it. And in the south, if we said idli dosa in the south as a fermented thing, dokla in Gujarat is again another thing that was fermented. Handwa, Tokla. So each area has developed their own recipes by which they consume things, and nothing was that was consumed as same as good as panacea for a problem, and it was never recommended that you eat this every day. So at every meal. So judicious combination of what was our traditional way is excellent. When I teach these children at school and I talk to the parents, the Parents Teachers Association, I tell them, what your grandmother, great grandmother, grandmother, mother ate, please teach that to your children. Unfortunately, our children know more about uncle chips, and I can't understand why you can eat your uncle. And then you have Cheetos. I can't understand why you must become a cheetah eating person. I have even questioned the companies. Why do you give names that we don't? And they don't understand our chikli or our murku or side, the traditional food. Our children don't know. They only know all these things. You get cheese balls without cheese, and that is being marketed. I don't understand why such things are being promoted, advertised, and there is no control on what is happening. So this is a very artificial, environment we are in. We really do not know what we are eating at this point of time.
So through this forum, you want a nutrition cell. You have given the message that is a very good message.
Yes, because Dr. Agarwal was very, very fond. I think the last session that he had, and I really dedicate this session to him, because the last session that he had was with me. So I definitely feel that I would want this forum. आप मेरे लिए दिल्ली बहुत दूर नहीं है. आप मेरे लिए कुछ करना पड़ेगा.
We'll have you both on the forum again, ma'am, and warm greetings to you from Gariga as well. He's our psychologist and artist who lives in Hyderabad. But it's, ma'am, 8:18 p.m. now. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire KK Med Talks family for being with us. Pratik, could we show a certificate of appreciation for both our speakers, please? Dr. Varsha, ma'am, thank you so much for being with us.
My
And
pleasure.
Dr.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
And Dr. Ashish, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, sir.
थैंक यू. जैसा कि आप सब जानते हैं, केके नेटवर्क्स यहाँ पे हम रोज होते हैं आपके साथ 7 से 8, और मैं होता हूँ हर सोमवार और वीरवार. एवरी मंडे एंड थर्सडे आई एम विद यू, एंड दिस वाज अ स्पेशल शो. वी हैड two eminent speakers with us, Dr. Ashish, Dr. Varsha, and together we have tried to do justice to this topic, holistic approach. Of course, और बहुत सारी चीजें चाहिए, बहुत सारी चीजें हमसे रह भी गई होंगी, हम माफी मांगते हैं आपसे. To all the people who have asked questions regarding medication, that is actually Dr. Ashish's forte, but because of time constraints, we could not take them. We'll have him again on the show, and then you can ask all your questions regarding use of insulin and use of glucose lowering drugs. But once again, आप सबको शुक्रिया करूंगा for being with us, and हमें मिलते रहें, आते रहें, अपने कमेंट्स भेजते रहें. अच्छा लगता है, बहुत अच्छा लगता है. And Malini, your point is well taken. Certainly, we'll have a separate session with both our speakers. तो फिर से आप सबसे शुक्रिया और इजाजत लेते हैं. शब्बा खैर, जय हिंद.
जय हिंद.
Jai Hind.
Thank you.